Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Abe.
Hello, Mario. How are you?
Good. And
How
you?
was your day today?
Busy, to say the
Is
least.
good. Busy's good.
So, Harold, where are you sitting now?
In my bedroom.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't recognize that window or that painting.
Oh yeah, I moved.
I like your squares downstairs, wherever you go.
Oh, the squares?
Yeah.
Oh, that's in the bed. Yeah, this one here? That one?
Yeah, there's two of them there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
nice.
That's in a different seat. I'm too lazy to get up.
Okay,
Very
rock
nice.
and roll. Time to rock and roll.
Hey, Ernie.
Hi.
Hello. 77.
77. Amrava. Hi Mandugra Gurla Davla. An employer is hiring workers to irrigate his field. That means they have to take buckets from either the river or from a ditch to irrigate. Vasamatra. He didn't know rain was coming. So I raise up say to the Boalim. That's a financial loss for the workers because remember we learned last night that the owner has to check the field the night before, and if he checked and something happens, it's not his fault. But here also, he doesn't know rain is going to come, so he doesn't have to pay the workers. Now, im also nara, but let's say the river over floods and irrigates the field, so then Pseudo shel Balabayis. He should have figured that he knows that this can happen, and in that case, he has to pay. Kapoil bottle like an idle worker. So he doesn't have to pay them the full salary, but he has to give them sort of a minimum wage. Somebody who hired a worker also to irrigate. And the river got blocked up half of the day. So Ilavid the Pasik, if this is an unusual event, so Pseudo the Boalim. So again, he doesn't have to pay the workers. But of it the posik, if this is something that occurs and everybody knows about it. So Ibn Masa, if the workers that he hired live in that city and they know about it, say that the Poalo, they should have recognized that that's a risk and they have to accept that they're not going to be paid. Vim lav b'nei Masa, if they don't live in that city, say that the Balabayas, then the Balabayas has to pay. Amarav, Ayman Dagra Goyla Vidita. He hired somebody for a specific job. And they finished half the day. So now normally workers were hired for a full day's work. And he had hired them for a specific job, but they finished it after half a day. Now, if he has lighter work than what he hired them from Yoivlo, he has the right to give them other work that's not as taxing as the main job that they were hired for. Or inami de kavose, or at least as hard. So mafkidu can give that. But the kashmine lo mafkidu, he cannot have them do harder work than what he hired them for. And no salem schar mishlam, he has to pay the full whatever he arranged with them. Why does he have to pay them the full wages? V'leisav luhu. At least for the other half of the day, he should pay them kaporal bottle, the minimum wage. So these were workers in the city of Achuzah, where the Eloi Avdi Chalshi, if they didn't work, they got weaker. Because they always did hard labor. And being idle is pain for them as opposed to hanoah for them. Amar Shomin lahem it's mashiyasu ketza. Haya yofer shisha dinar. The job was calculated to be shisha dinar. No, it's the musela. He pays them a sell, which is half the schar. We're talking about in a case where they backed off, let's say after half the day. So kasabi rabbana. Yad porlala yona, the worker has the upper hand. So he doesn't lose everything if he backs out. Then they were given the option. If they finish their job, they can get the full salary, which is the 2 salary. So pshita, I mean, that's not a big chiddush. That was the original condition. Lo tzricha de iyakar avidita. That in the meantime, wages went up. The imru poalim, and they wanted to continue working. V'azu balabayos ufaisin, and the employer came around and sort of talked them into finishing the job. The Havamina is that when you came to ask us to continue working, we thought you would pay us the higher rate. No, that yes, I promised you to improve the conditions, but not to pay you a higher salary. I would give you better food and drink, but not necessarily pay you more. Then the Mishnah said if they did a seller worth of work, so they get paid a seller. So pshita. So lo tzricha de zalabit temir agree betfei de zuzah. Initially, the hourly wage was lower, and he paid them $1 more than the standard, or he offered them $1 more than the standard rate. And now the rate is even higher. It's $2 more. I might think that they could say, we were expecting $1 more than the prevailing rate, so now you have to pay us $2 above what you promised. When I offered you initially $1 more, you didn't know that the rate was going to go up. So that's why I even offered you a better rate. And you accepted it. I'm not willing to pay more. And he has the right to do that. Rav Dosa Omer Shtamin Laim Es Masha Asid La'atos. That you don't look at the work that they completed, but what the work that they're going to do. The Mayafa Shisha Dinarim. And if that work is going to be Shisha Dinarim, he pays them a shekel. Ksavar, Yada Pola Tachtona. That Rav Dosa holds that the worker has the lower hand, not the upper hand. And and he wants them to finish the job and get the standard payment of 2 slot. So pshita lo tzricha to v'emer balabayis. That in the middle of the work, wages went down. And v'ozu polim faisiu. He went to the workers and he convinced them to continue working at the low rate. I agree that the balabais can say, when I convince you to stay on the job, you would reduce your rate. They can say back that we want the higher rate because we're going to do a better job. Then besela noisim lemsela. If they have a selo to do, he gives them a selo. Exam pshita. I'm not going to pray Rav Nasan loitzricha to azlu inu gavez zuzumi kara. They reduced their rate to $1 less than the standard, and then ulbasov zalavidita, and the general rate went down, and the general rate now is what they had accepted. Maybe the balabayas can say to them, listen, you accepted to work at $1 less than the prevailing rate. Well, the prevailing rate now is where it is. I want to pay you $1 less. Kamash Malon, that no. The unrelayed, the workers can say, when I told you that we're going to work for $1 less, we weren't sure what the rate is. Now we know that that's the rate, and you can't pay less than that. Amar Rav Aloch Rav Dois. Rav says the Aloch is Rav Dois. Umi Amar Rav Achi. Did Rav say that the Aloch is Rav Dois? Amar Rav. Poyel Yachal Lachzerbo. Remember, Rav Dosa said that the worker's hand is below the employer. Here, Rav is saying that the worker can go back at any time. Even half day. The chite b'shan Rav Dosa ben schirus the kablanos. Schirus is when you're hired for a day's work. Kablanos is you're hired to finish a certain job. So is there a difference between the two? Umishanile. There's no difference. Vatanya. You hire a worker. He's working. Half day at noontime, Shama Shemes Lames. A relative died, and he has to work for the relative for the burial. Osha Zosochamo, he gets sick, he has a fever. So in Sachir here, Notin Laschor. You pay him his wages, he's an anus, and you pay him half of the day's wages, and in Kablanu, there's like Kablanuso. You pay him the same contract that you had with him. Money. Ilem Rabbanon. So my area, if it's Rabbanon, who always say that the worker has the upper hand, so why do you have to tell me the case of Shomer Shemes Lomeis or Shach L'Chama de Onis? Kilonis Nami. Even if there's no problem, a worker can withdraw from the job. On Rabbanon, Yad Polal Yonah, right? The worker has the upper hand. Must be Elalav Rav Doisi. We're talking about the sheet of Rav Doisi who says that the employer has the upper hand. Ushmami no. Lo Yishani Leil Rav Doisi Ben Schir the Kablonis. So there's no difference between if you hire them as a schir yom or as a kablan. Kablan's a contractor. We're talking about B'davar Ha'avul. Remember, if there's an impending financial loss, if the workers leave, then everybody agrees that the employer has the upper hand. And therefore, since it's an onus, everybody holds Gidivakol. Tana, Kol HaMishana, whoever changes the terms of the deal, Yodav ala Techtona, he has the lower hand. Kol HaChoyzer, if you go back on it, Yodav ala Techtona. Bishlama, Kol HaMishana, Yodav ala Techtona, is also Montana. That's what the Mishnah said without naming anybody. What is that coming to teach us? Lav lasui poel, to tell me this has to do with the worker going back, and Rav Doisa. So Rav Doisa tarti koma. Rav Doisa taught two halachos. Rav Savarlo Kavasa B'chadu, Polka B'chadu. Rav held with Rav Doisa in one case regarding Rav did not agree with Rav Dosa that a Yad Poel is ala tachtona always, but calculating the schar, he agreed. He boy saying, other people say, whoever goes back on the deal has the lower hand. That's something completely else. Tanya. What does it mean? Reuven is selling Shimon a field for $1,000, and Shimon gives him most the Mosai Zuz. He gives him $200. And then one of them wants to go back on the deal. So, Bishman Shamoicher Choyzer, when the seller goes back, then Yad Lokech Alal Yona. The buyer has a choice. Ketza. Ratza Amar Lo Ten Li Mosi Shenoselan. He could say, give me my $200 back. Oh, Ten Li Karka Keneged Noisi. Give me at least $200 worth of land. Now, what kind of land? Me'echan Magviu. Mina Idis. From, remember, there's three qualities of land. Idis, the highest, Beinanis, middle, Ziburis. So he can claim Idis. If it was the buyer who decided to change his mind, the seller has the upper hand. Ratza, if the seller wants, here, take your $200 back. Ratza, I can give you $200 worth of land, but from my inferior land. We teach both parties not to go back. Ketzad, Kosevlo, we write in the star, Ani Ploni ben Ploni, I, such and such person, Macharti Soda Ploinis, I sell this lot, Li Ploini be'elav zuz, and Nosan li mehem l'sayim zuz, he gave me $200. He owes me, I already know Shabo Shmona Mil Zuz, so I'm going to need to collect from him another 800. And Kana, if it's written like that, the buyer acquires the whole field. And if the buyer decides not to buy it, so then the owner has to give back the $800 even after many years. We said we said that if the seller went back, the buyer can claim $200 of the best land. Now, what does it mean idis? We're not talking about that piece of land that he was going to buy for $1,000, and that piece of land had good parts and bad parts. No, it means he gets a claim on all of his land and an idis piece of land. Why should it be different than a regular person who had a loan, a collateral piece of land for a loan? And Baal Choiv Dino b'beininus. And when a creditor comes to collect a piece of land, he only gets beininus, not idis. The ode, ha'ared diyav zuzi, he paid for a certain field. Why should he get a different piece of land from another place? That's exactly what we're talking about. The best part of that piece of land he can claim. And Mizibur Shabbat. And the other Shita was from the worst part of that piece of land. No, I can explain the case that it means even from the best of his lands, not necessarily that piece of land. Because somebody who buys a piece of land with $1,000, he doesn't have cash. He's trying to sell other assets. He's trying to sell his other assets, even at a loss, to get money. So, and if he doesn't, he's going to end up losing money. So therefore, Havale Kinisik, he's being financially damaged. Utnan and Izakin Shamilan Bedis. If you're damaged and the guy doesn't have to pay you money, you can get from the best quality land. That's how Ravacha wants to learn. It's a unique concept. Then it said, Rabban Shamir Gamliel Oimer, Melandin Oisom Shelo Yatsuru. We have them write a star so that it'll sort of box them into corners. Ketsa. Koizavlani Ploni Ben Ploni, and we talked about how to write that star. Time at the cost of Lehachi. Fine, he wrote it. Alog cost of Hachi lo kani. So what are you going to say? If you didn't write a star, there's no kinyan. V'hatanya hanosen a rovon lechaveru. You give either piece, you give collateral when you're buying something to a friend after they've agreed on a deal. If I go back on the deal, arvuni mochalach, you can keep the collateral. The halom on the other side says, I'll pay you back double. So it's not whenever we have this sort of like a guzma, like an exaggeration, we have to worry about our old friend, an asmachta, right? However, this Brisa says, niskaimu atnoi. These tnoim would be fulfilled. Eladiv Rabbi Yosi. And Rabbi Yosi is l'tamei de omer asmachta kanyo. That even though it seems perverse and doesn't make financial sense to pay such a fine, if he said it, we rely on it. And it creates a real kinyan. So why do you say there's no kinyan? There is a kinyan. Even if later on they regret. Rabbi Yehuda Omer dair sheyikne keneged ervono. That he gets at least a piece of land opposite the value of the collateral he gave. He had to say, this collateral I'm giving you should acquire. Then there's a kinyan. But if they discussed an agreement to sell a field for $1,000, without going into the details, the buyer gives $500. He acquires the whole field. And then later on, if he doesn't come up with the West, so Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, even if they didn't write a contract, he acquires the whole field and he has to pay the rest. So how come the Brisa says that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, you have to write a contract? Oh, loy kasha, the ko'al b'nafik azuzi. If the seller is chasing after the buyer to collect money, and it's clear that the seller therefore needs money, And since he didn't get the real money, he's like, it's like he's damaged. Then if you didn't detail it in the contract, the deal goes away. Because if we find the moicher that he's not running around trying to collect from the buyer, so then all the tnoim that they will agree will stay in place even without a contract. Somebody who sells somebody to a friend, then he's going to try to collect the money from the buyer, loikana. It must be that the seller sold because he desperately needed money. He needed cash. And if he doesn't get it right away, the whole amount, he didn't really want to sell it. That's not what wasn't his kavanah. Now, if he's not running around to get his money, it's clear that he was happy with it, and that the rest would be owed to him like a mortgage, and the buyer will buy it, will pay him when he can. Here's an interesting case. Somebody loaned $100 to his friend, and the friend paid him back dollar for dollar, $1, $2, $3, until 100. Piron Havi, he paid it back. The lender can have sort of complaints against him, because most people, they need $100 back, not $1 at a time. You caused me a financial loss. Since you didn't give me a big sum in one thing, I can't really use it. Person sold some wine to his friend. It was going to be $100, and he paid 99. And the seller was chasing after him to collect the $1. Yosef Ravashi v'komayinbo. Ki I gavne mai. What about in this case? Kani or lo kani? Remember we said, maybe it's not a kinyan if we see the guy chasing after the money, since he needs it. And maybe we say that the sale should be abolished in this situation. But maybe since it's only $1 less, maybe he cannot reverse the sale. Ravashi. Hachiyam Ravimi, Agrunya Mishmei Rava. Zuza kazuza dami v'lo. $1 is like $100, and therefore you can claim that the sale is reversed. We heard in another place that Rava said in this situation it would be koine. To targem shmaticha, we can solve this contradiction. He sold it not because he lacked money. He wanted to get rid of the field. It was a bad field. That when he's going after the last dollar, because he's worried that eventually the buyer will have regret. So he wants to collect his money and complete the sale quickly, period. Okay. Tomorrow we'll learn at 4:30.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.